Look at the keys on your counter. They aren't tools for travel, they are credentials for a moving data center. Have you ever walked toward your car and heard the locks click open before you even touch the handle? That seamless recognition is the first layer of the merger. We have traded the mechanical horse for a glass and silicon cockpit. 25 years ago, a car was an island of autonomy. When you closed that heavy steel door, you entered a private vacuum. No satellite tracked your velocity, no software update could remotely disable your brakes. You were the sole pilot of a mechanical beast, and you didn't realize that driving was synonymous with freedom. But in 2026, a car is no longer a machine you operate. It is a node in a systemic grid. To drive a modern vehicle is to be a data point in a vast telemetry-driven experiment. That shift from the steering wheel to the autonomous flow didn't happen by accident. It followed a blueprint. I'm the Analyst. This is Blueprint Sequence. Step back 25 years. In 2001, the car was a tactile fortress. The blueprint was defined by physical friction and the blood of the machine. Remember the gas station ritual? It was a sensory experience, the heavy scent of raw petroleum, the mechanical thunk of the nozzle, and the physical transaction of cash or card at a kiosk that didn't know your name. You weren't recharging a battery, you were feeding a mechanical heart. Remember the intimacy of the maintenance. You didn't wait for a digital pop-up to tell you something was wrong, you felt it. You felt a slight tremor in the steering wheel, or heard a subtle change in the engine's idle. You pulled the dipstick yourself, checking the oil, the black, viscous lifeblood of your freedom. You were a mechanic of your own destiny. Between the seats, you had the console, the cockpit of your private world. There were no user agreements to sign before you could shift into gear. The dashboard was a landscape of analog needles and glowing amber bulbs, information that existed only in the present moment. Your radio was a physical dial, a textured knob you turned to catch a fading signal from a tower 50 miles away. Your infotainment wasn't a stream of data from the cloud. It was a physical stack of CDs, scratched plastic cases that held the specific, chosen soundtrack of your life. And there was the road trip, the great unscripted American ritual. You navigated via the paper map, a massive ink-stained grid spread across the dashboard like a sacred text. There was no blue line to follow. You stopped at lonely gas stations to ask a stranger for directions, risking the genuine possibility of being lost for hours in a landscape that didn't know you were there. That risk, the lostness, was the very proof of your independence. You were an explorer, not a passenger. This was the era of absolute anonymity. Once you pulled out of your driveway, you were off the map. Your car didn't know where you were going, how hard you were braking, or who was in the passenger seat. You owned the hardware, and the hardware had no memory. You were the ghost in the machine. Fast forward to 2026, the blueprint has shifted from a machine to a leased software asset. Your car is no longer a device you own. It is an agentic terminal that updates while you sleep. If the manufacturer decides to change the interface, or limit your range, or adjust your steering feel, they do it silently, over the air. You wake up to a different machine than the one you parked. We have entered the age of the subscription paywall. The hardware is already there, the heated coils in the seats, the performance in the motor, but it is locked behind a monthly fee. You are paying rent on a physical object you've already purchased. This is the ultimate triumph of the blueprint, the transformation of a physical tool into a recurring revenue stream. Consider the death of geography. In 2001, you understood the veins and arteries of the landscape because you had to navigate them. In 2026, the car has outsourced your intuition to a blue line on a screen. We no longer know where we are, we simply follow a prompt. We have traded our internal compass for a proprietary algorithm. Your car now possesses a neural memory. It knows where you went last Tuesday. It sees the world through a dozen cameras, recording your surroundings, your behavior, and your passengers. This data isn't yours. It is a commodity harvested for the grid. The glass slab interface isn't a dashboard, it's a surveillance terminal designed to manage your dopamine while the system manages the driving. We haven't just lost the buttons, we've lost the veil between our movement and the market. By 2051, the concept of driving will be a museum piece, a hobby for the eccentric, performed on private tracks behind closed gates. We are currently standing at the event horizon of a total atmospheric shift in how humanity occupies space. The steering wheel won't just be removed from the car, it will be removed from our collective consciousness. The data reveals two branching sequences for human mobility. The first blueprint, the mobile living pod. The car is no longer a tool for travel, but a moving room. There is no front or back, no steering wheel, no pedals. You enter a silent, glass-enclosed lounge where the journey is irrelevant. In this sequence, the commute is rebranded as optimized leisure, where your attention is the primary fuel for the grid. But consider the cost to the human psyche. A generation that never experiences the open road will eventually lose the ability to envision a horizon they didn't choose. We are no longer travelers, we are just content, being shifted across a map we can no longer read. Alternatively, the second blueprint, the micro-mobility web. In this sequence, the car, as a private object, vanishes entirely. The city itself becomes the vehicle, a living organism of modular pods that dock and undock with surgical precision. Personal ownership is replaced by access credits, and your movement is dictated by the real-time efficiency of the swarm. But in this perfect transit, what happens to the concept of personal space? When movement is a shared utility, the private journey becomes an inefficiency and eventually a relic of a selfish past. We will have solved the traffic jam, but we may have accidentally engineered a permanent state of confinement. Both potentials represent the final stage of the sequence. We have moved from the pilot to the passenger to the cargo. The car was once the ultimate expression of the individual, now it is the ultimate expression of the algorithm. In this final transition, we have perfected the flow, but we have sacrificed the drive. The destination is still being drafted, but the lines are already being drawn. We began this sequence behind a wheel, feeling the vibrations of the road and the heat of the engine. We end it as data points, contained in a glass box, travelling at the speed of the grid. The blueprint of the car was never just about transportation. It was about the architecture of our freedom. And as the driver's seat disappears, we must ask ourselves who or what is truly in control of the journey. The metal shell remains, but the soul of the machine has been rewritten in code. We have exchanged the unpredictability of the open road for the safety of the scripted path. In our quest for a frictionless existence, we have engineered out the very friction that once made us feel alive. The sequence is moving toward a horizon of perfect efficiency, but a world without a steering wheel is a world where the individual no longer chooses the turn. Every mile we travel now leaves a permanent footprint in the digital dust. The machine is watching, the grid is learning, and the blueprint is nearly complete. I'm the analyst. Sequence complete.